Negotiating 101. How to negotiate and talk to your sellers to get the best price possible for your wholesaling real estate deals. What's up, guys? Zach in here.
Rick in here.
And in today's video, we're going to break down exactly how to talk to your sellers and get the lowest price possible on your real estate wholesaling deals. But before we break it down, before we share exactly how to actually get the best price possible, I'm telling you, the information in this video alone is worth thousands and thousands of dollars. You got to do us a favor and smash that like button and subscribe, get the most true value from us, and let's break it down. So a lot of people think negotiating is like this big, bad Wolf of Wall Street, like closing sales tactic thing. And at the end of the day, what we figured out, if you want to have a lot of success with your negotiating and talking to sellers, your negotiation really breaks down to how well of a connection you have with that seller. And the more connected and the more rapport you have with that seller, the better chance you have the lowest price possible and for you to make the most profits on your deals, right?
Absolutely. So the amount of time you spend connecting with someone is going to be proportionate to the discount you get. A lot of people like to just run people over in the price right off the bat, and that's the worst strategy you can do. So an example, if a seller's like, well, how much you offering? How much you offering? Do not answer it, because you're going to get nowhere with that. You've got to take the time and build that rapport before you get to the negotiating part.
It's so important for your wholesaling skills and your negotiation. So in your opinion, like, what is negotiating for wholesaling real estate?
Negotiation is really just asking people for stuff. It's not like this, you hear the ABCs always be closing. Honestly, I've seen the worst salespeople be really good at wholesaling. Wholesaling is number one about connecting with people, and some people do it naturally. Some have to work at it harder. And then basically number two is having a conversation with people. So think about this. When you do business with a stranger, it's tough. You don't know them. You don't know their habits. You have no idea if they're trustworthy. But say your friend has a business. Do you notice you just go straight to price because you already know them, you're comfortable with it, and you're usually very, very happy with the price right off the bat. Why is that? Because you took the time to get to know the person. So think about it in your own business. You do business with friends. You make it easy, fast. You don't even question anything. Why should it be any different for a seller?
100%. I agree. So it really comes down to building that rapport. So if we know rapport is going to be the secret sauce for getting the best prices with our negotiating, what are some tips you give to when you go meet the seller or you're over the phone with the seller of actually building that rapport so you are really good at negotiating?
So number one, use the clues that are laid out in front of you. Like this is negotiating tactics 101. People's homes are their homes. And when you get invited into them, it's everything. That's why I always tell guys, if you can do a belly to belly meeting, you will make so much more money because you get so much more intel and you get a better chance to connect and build rapport. That's absolutely number one. Number two, a lot of you get stuck when a seller bounces a question back to you and you don't know how to answer it. And I've been there and done that. So I'm going to teach you a little technique. We basically call it kind of volleying. You call it a tennis match, whatever you want to do, is where you take that same question they ask you and you kick it back to them. So let me give you an idea. It's like, hey, Mr. Seller, do you have an idea what you need to get for this house? Sometimes you get the blank stare, or a lot of times they go, honestly, Rick, I don't even have a clue or a ballpark of what it's worth. Okay? You have one of two choices. You can shut your mouth and let that awkwardness kill you. This is a time you actually have to talk. Or you can do what most wholesalers do. They go, well, don't worry, we'll get back to that later. You can't. You've got to have, it's a little bit of an awkward conversation. It's not a sale. So if you just use the volley technique, so once again, he goes, hey, Rick, I don't really know the value. I don't even have a clue. I'm sorry. Now, they might be telling you the truth. Most likely they're going to be lying to you. I'm just going to tell you the truth. So when they say that, I go, Mr. Seller, I know you don't know the exact value, but if you could just kind of give me a ballpark of what you really need to get out of this to move on with your life, can you give me that to me? And you just shut up. Now, studies show if you volley something 3 times or more, you will 90% of the time get a definitive answer. Okay? The first one, everybody has a guard for it. The second one, they're completely off guard. You just served a backhand and they didn't think it was going to come back over the court. Now, what happens when he goes, well, Rick, you know what? I don't like guessing and you kind of caught me off guard with it. Hey, John, listen, I get it. I'm not going to hold you accountable to it. just give me a range of what you need to get out of this, and we'll see if we can work together. Remember, I'm here. I told you to help you out. The third time, they'll always give you an answer. I'm just telling you, it's that easy. So many of you guys give up after the first objection, and this goes for any of the objections you get in wholesaling. Just use the volley method. Repeat the question back to them and give them permission to answer it.
It works all the time.
All the time.
And this comes to the next part. It's like when you're negotiating with a seller, a lot of people lose out, especially our competition, because they're not conditioning the seller. I can tell you right now, if you've gone through freewholesaling.com, you sort of know what I'm talking about, but we do not give an offer to a seller. We don't even start the negotiating process unless we condition the seller. This is because, I mean, you've seen this before in your deals. It's like you go to a seller and you're ready to get this deal right, and you give them the offer, you do your cool sales negotiating hack, and then the seller says, okay, well, let me think about it, maybe. And then you never hear a thing back from them. And you're like, what happened to the deal? Did it get screwed? Like, what's happened? And then you're always itching and scratching, and then you lose out to the deal to another investor, and you're like, what happened, right? And this is going to happen to a lot of your deals, especially in today's market. The truth is, if you condition the seller, basically, this is asking the seller, hey, Sally Sue, before I go meet you at the property, before we go forward on this phone conversation with virtual wholesaling, are you ready to make a yes or no decision before we talk numbers on this deal?
Correct. And then if you meet with them in person, you want to set up, we call it the upfront agreement when you meet him in person. He's correct on the phone because I don't want to meet people that aren't going to make a decision.
Or give that offer because that's leverage.
Correct. And you make sure the right decision maker is there. And then when I get there, I'm going to fortify what it is. Hey, Mr. Seller, listen, we're going to spend about 30, 40 minutes talking to each other. We're going to go over the house. You're going to get to know me a little bit better. I get to know you. I like to get to know people personally before I do it. And at the end of the conversation, you're going to have a choice. You're going to say, hey, listen, Rick, I love working with you. I want to move forward, and I want to work with you on the deal. Or you decide, hey, I don't like what you're saying. I don't like you, and I just want to part ways. Either way, I need an answer. Is that fair to move forward? They will always say 100% absolutely. So I have your commitment. Great. And Mr. Seller, I promise you, if I buy your house or I don't buy your house, I promise you I will help you out to the best of my ability. And once you have that upfront agreement, when they get to the end and the old stall tactic, and you go, Mr. Seller, can we go ahead and move forward, and can I present you a contract for it? And then they go, well, I got to think it over. Tell them how we respond to them.
Well, I mean, the easiest way to answer that, it's like, don't you remember that upfront agreement that we had? Aren't you a man of your word? I'm a man of my word, and I remember you said specifically you're ready to give a yes or no decision. So I'm asking, what is your yes or no decision? I trust you in your word, so just seeing what the decision was.
So some people call it straight out guilt. It's just getting a commitment. So if you go in and you say you're going to spend an hour with someone and you don't have that upfront agreement, they're going to give you permission to give you an answer later. I got to talk it over with my wife. I got to talk to my attorney. I got to talk to my dog, my cat, my real estate agent. And so a lot of times when we do the upfront agreement, they'll tell you, well, I'd like to have my wife present. Perfect. Let's go ahead and get her in the room and get it done. If you do not have that upfront agreement, more than half of them will slip out the back door on an excuse. The reality is they just don't have enough information. And once they know they have a hard agreement with you, they'll ask much better quality questions and you will get to a result. And by the way, if they say no to you, they do you a huge favor. There's nothing worse than that person that sits in between yes and no, and you have to call them 100 times to eventually have you say no. So don't get upset when they say no. I'm actually happy because I get a final result.
So the next part here is the most important part, is like once we start getting in the negotiating process. So there's obviously other things during the negotiating process on the appointment that you have to understand. Number one, be a chameleon, right? If your seller is talking in a slower pace, you talk in a slower pace. If someone's talking a hyper pace, you talk in a hyper pace.
One of the things we overlook, we talk about the whole chameleon thing, is it's awkward, but if they're standing up, you have to stand up. If they're sitting on the couch, you sit at the couch. They're sitting at the kitchen table, you sit at the kitchen table. It makes people feel comfortable. And so many of you, like you'll do the tonality, you'll do the speed, but sometimes you're standing and they're sitting. You just need to match their physicality. So standing, sitting, walking. I've had people make their best decisions when they walk. Take the cues. People do things physically Remember, 70% of communication is physical. It's not verbal. You got to take the cues.
So the most important thing when it comes to negotiating, and this is pretty much sales 101. You look at some of the books behind us from the 70s, the 60s, the 50s about wholesaling real estate. It all comes down to never saying the price first, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's, you got to, honestly, if you say the price before you get into any type of like rapport building, I don't even care what the number is. You're going to be at a disadvantage because some people get like really turned off by that, and you have no ability to connect with people. So unless, I mean, they're just zombies and they just want a certain number, which rarely happens, you have to follow this strategy. It works. You will get to the number. It is a process. But I'm just telling you, so many times the seller will come out in attack formation. Zach, what's the number? What's the number? Let's just get to it. Let's get to the number. And how do you respond to them?
So if it's over the phone, if someone says, what's the number? What's the number? What's the number? I always ask them this, hey, have you ever bought in a car? Yes, I've bought in a car, they'll say. I'll be like, well, have you ever test driven the car before you bought it? Of course I did. Well, how would I give you an offer on the property if I didn't test drive it? It's kind of like a car. I need to look at it. Like, I'm kind of old school. I don't know about you. And if it's an older person, they like to think they're old school, right? Yes, I am old school. Well, I have to actually look at the house before I can actually give an offer on it, because the difference between someone who's serious about buying this property and not is someone actually wants to go to the house and actually look at it, touch it, see it, feel it, and see what we can do with the property. I mean, does that make sense to you?
So you guys see, if you attack the price, you're going to actually discredit yourself. And then also you just set a new precedent because the seller now controls the conversation. So when your seller tries to like jump all over the board, and people do this, you have to take control politely back. Mr. Seller, listen, at all respect, you wouldn't want me to buy a house I've never seen. Have you ever done that? No. Okay. So if you could just help me, just bear with me a little, let me go through a process here, and then I promise you we'll get to a number. It's that simple. If you give out the price, then they're just telling you, I don't want to hear anything you have to say. Just give me a number because I'm only making a number decision. You have to give yourself a shot because remember, you are not going to pay the most for this property. So if you start out with that, you're at a huge disadvantage.
So the script when it actually comes to closing the seller, now if we can't give the price first, where's the script to use? Where's your closing line? This is the same closing line I do for virtual wholesaling and in-person local physical wholesaling. So obviously you want to know the motivation, the pain points in the property, and then you basically hit them with this script. Hey, Mr. Seller. So after looking at everything, I'm seeing the property here and I know you're ready to move to wherever, then you're going to insert wherever you want to move to. If me and my partners were able to buy this property from you, how much are you looking to really sell the property for? If you were able to move in the next 2 months or, their time frame for selling, what price would work for you for us to be able to buy this property for cash and you can move it and you don't have to deal with the hassle of the property? You kind of insert the motivation in there. And either going to say you one or two things, right? They're going to give you an offer, right? Which is what you want. They're going to say, how much are you going to offer? And that's the only two things that I can really go. Now, if they give you an offer, pretty easy, right? You negotiate from there, right? Correct. Now, if they say what offer you're going to do, you're going to have to use the dollar strategy. This is the strategy that I use. Or you can use the volley strategy too, that we did earlier.
Or you can use the third party strategy. So I'll throw that one out there. They won't give you a number, which is common. So we've already taught you the volley strategy where you go back and forth. So the other ones where you're just going to go, listen, I don't have a number. I've talked over my partner. I think we got like, I don't know, we got like 85 grand. Is that something you could do, or should I just take that off the table right off the bat? Now, one or two things are going to happen. They're either going to engage you or they're going to disengage you. The disengage is going to go like this, and it works because it's reverse psychology. 85 grand. Are you absolutely nuts, Rick? That is so far out of it. I can't take anything less than 100. So we pulled it out to him by putting it. Now you can save face, go, listen, I'm just throwing it out there. It's almost like, when someone says they throw it, but I'm just joking, you're kind of doing the same thing. The other way is be prepared. If you offer too high a number, say you offer 80, 95, and they go, a lot of times I get awkward 30 seconds, if not a 1 minute pause. You have to hold your breath. You have to wait till they respond. If you keep talking, which I did in the beginning, you will never get a good deal. Sit there. So if you throw out a price and you either doing the volleying method or you're throwing out the third party blame one, wait for them to respond no matter what it is. I've waited as minutes. It seems like forever. Sometimes they'll come back and they go, okay, I'll do the deal. And that's why we always want you guys to get the lowest price up front, because if you get the hard, awkward conversation out of the way, your deals are so much easier to sell, as opposed to a new wholesaler who doesn't understand what they're doing. They put everything under contract and they're impossible to sell because they never had that hard conversation.
Or you just do the dollar strategy where basically it's like, hey, are you willing to sell the property for how much? And they say, oh, you give me an offer. Well, would it be okay if I bought this property for $1? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, why can't I buy it for $1 then? And they're like, well, no, because I need more for it. Well, how much more? $2, $3? And then they get so frustrated. They're like, $50,000, they say the price. So the thing is, you just do not give up and give that offer, or you can just lowball them. That's risky too. But at the end of the day, you just got to give them and give the offer first, and then basically negotiate them down. One of the best strategies that I've found personally when it comes to negotiating is whatever price they give a really, really low offer, and they're probably not going to take that. Now, you can always use a partner, the good cop, bad cop, and be like, well, my partner Rick told me to buy this at $20,000. That's how he came up with that low. Oh, I'd never take $20,000. Get out of here. No, that's what my partner, was offering. Let's meet in the middle. That's another way to do it. Use a bad cop if you want to give a really insulting low offer, and just blame the bad person and say, hey, I want to work with you. I actually want to buy this.
Yeah.
It's one of the best ways I found.
Remember, guys, you want an initial no when you make an offer, because if you get an initial yes, you offered too much. It's almost impossible to come off that price because you set such a high expectation. So go for the no on the first one. Understanding whatever price they give you, here's my rule, that's a starting point. That's never an ending point. So if you offered, say, 75 and they started at 100, I know right there I'm going to do a deal. Yeah. Like, it's not that far to walk them off. So like, okay, 100 is my worst case. That's where I'm starting. I'm at 75. Never do the split down the middle. It doesn't work. It's a psychological warfare against you. You can go up just a little bit. You need to have reasons to go up. So let them throw something in, or sometimes we have them throw in lawnmowers or anything like that. But it's, guys, there's strategies you use. In the old days, I used to use what we call the range. So if like I made an offer, I go, would you consider like 50? They're like, crazy, 50,000. Are you crazy? I go, I was thinking like 50 to 65,000 in that range somewhere. And they go, yeah, that might work. When they say that might work, I immediately revert to 50. So you can do the range sometimes, but it's an approach where I'm not getting any traction with the other ones, and you try it. I think we've given you 3 or 4 methods just to play around here. Remember, every seller is different and unique, and you have to conform to their style of communication. And guys, please do not forget, most of the communication is going to be nonverbal. Guys, do your homework on psychology, on how people roll their eyes, if they look up, if they look down, their body posture. You can tell a lot of clues, and you guys can Google the heck out of this, and you'll learn a lot.
Boom. That's it, guys. So this is how you negotiate. These are the best tips for getting the best price possible from your sellers. And what I can tell you right now is if you implement even 1% of these strategies, you're going to go a long way and become better at this business.
So guys, negotiations is really, number one, it's about connecting with people. It's about building rapport, and then having kind of that awkward conversation. It's not a sales conversation, and getting that first no without them kicking you out the door, and find a price that will work for both parties. If it doesn't work for you and it doesn't work for them, it's not a good wholesale deal. And this isn't about you winning and them losing. It's actually the opposite. You want win-win situations.
Thank you guys so much. Please smash that like button and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. This is Zach Ginn signing out.
Rick Ginn signing out.
Have a blessed one.
See you guys.